You're in.
Hello, welcome to Hoboken Talks. The idea of this show is we interview and talk to interesting people from Hoboken. I can't think of a more interesting person from Hoboken than Glenn Morrow, who's sitting right next to me. Glenn is one of the most influential people in Hoboken. He's had the distinction of being in the first band that ever played at Maxwell's, as well as the last. He's a musician who's touched many people's lives here in Hoboken and across the United States. He's also a record company owner, being founder or at least owner of Bar None Records. He's also a businessman, I'd say activist, or at least a politically committed citizen, father, and most importantly for me, a friend. I could say this: I knew I was a Hobokenite at a certain point, and it involves Glenn Morrow. When I lived, for real, when I lived on the Lower East Side, I got 1982, 1983. I guess I was in Hoboken, probably seeing a show at Maxwell's, and I went with my friend Brent Shearer, and he was right. And it was the end of the night, the band was playing, and I was like, "Come on, stay for one more drink." And he's like, "No, I gotta go home and write an article." And I was like, "Oh, what are you writing about?" He said, "Glenn Morrow." And I said, "Who's Glenn Morrow?" And he gave me that hipster look, like
Before there were hipsters.
yeah. And then he explained who Glenn Morrow was. Now, fast forward 7 or 8 years, and I got to be friends with Glenn. I think it's because our children went to the same nursery school, daycare center, and that was like in 1989, 1990, and we've been friends since.
I think we were hanging out in bars a little bit before that, maybe,
yeah, probably.
Maybe. I don't know.
But you were just,
It's been a while.
Yes.
The whole thing.
So we're going to do things a little different because Glenn has spoken about his past in Hoboken a whole lot, and we will talk about that. But we're going to start with the future.
Yikes!
With the future and
into that void.
Let's just start with your record label, Bar None. What do you have planned? What's coming up from Bar None?
Well, it's been strange with the pandemic.
Yeah.
But oddly, we're doing okay. More and more people are streaming music around the world than ever before, and the amount of money that generates from streaming records just keeps growing. A band, the Front Bottoms, that we signed 10 years ago, we're going to do a 10th anniversary edition.
10 years already.
I know.
They seem like new guys to me.
I just found a picture of them coming to the office to sign with Bar None, and I didn't have it in time to give it to you, but they're wearing Montvale. They were working for some Montvale lawn company, and they were covered in black paint, and they had matching green Montvale lawn shirts on. It's funny. I saw them play the other night, and their band was wearing like orange jumpsuits. So they've
not gold.
Hasn't changed that much in 10 years. But and they just played this place, Pier 17, last night, and
so
they're doing great.
They're doing a 10-year release. You're doing
we're doing a 10-year version of their first album, like a special edition with bundle T-shirt, all that kind of stuff. And then we're working with a lot of young bands.
Like who?
Little Hag from Asbury Park, who I'm especially fond of, and I just think is an incredible writer. Justice Prophet from LA. It's kind of a DIY scenester there, kind of like a young R. Stevie Moore, if you can imagine that. And
wait, I don't know who R. Stevie.
Oh, you don't know R. Stevie Moore? He's like the grandfather of DIY rock music. Big staple at FMU. He's been around, making stuff since probably the mid 70s. And every time there's a new technology, he embraces it kind of in a lo-fi way. So the kids all discovered his videos on YouTube, and he managed to keep a career going. Barnum's actually done records with him as well, and Irwin is sort of his quasi manager, Irwin Chusett, who's done a number of projects with Barnum as well. I think I answered that question.
Yes, you did. You did.
Justice Prophet, also Winter, a really cool little punk rock / almost hardcore band, somewhere in between those two, from San Francisco, called Pardon. Like, I don't know. Someone who pardons people.
Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, there's a pardoner.
Oner?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe it could be from that.
Okay.
And then Kolazenka, who's kind of in Brooklyn, by way of, I think, Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, I have a question for you, because I was looking at the Barnum New Offerings catalog, and one of the bands or performers, it said, and I think it was a she, but I'm not sure, type of music is something shoegazing. What does shoegazing mean? Shoegazing
was kind of a 90s music form, like trying to remember the Ride. There were a lot of British bands. My Bloody Valentine, that's kind of shoegaze, but now it's kind of morphed into something called dream pop.
Okay.
And it's funny because I remember seeing some of those bands back in the day, and they were really loud. But the dream pop bands, you go see them, it's almost like they just listen to the records at like a low volume.
Oh my!
So when they play really quietly. I found it kind of, it's like, wow, it's like they really rethought that in a different way. Like the guitars are super thin, maybe with like a wash of chorus guitar, but
Well, I remember reading somewhere, probably in my teenage years, Jerry Garcia saw the Lovin' Spoonful, and they were so quiet, like they were playing California.
And
like,
they both are sort of jug bands.
Yeah, he's like this will never happen with our band. They're going to play this low.
Yeah,
it's quiet.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about the future, let's talk about, in terms of the future, with Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help. And I asked this question because you released an album, I think in December, called Two.
Right.
But, okay, this is me sounding like grandpa here. You released it only on Bandcamp?
No, we released it. It's at all the streaming services. You can get Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help 2 at all the streaming services.
But does it exist in
tangible? It doesn't exist. I just thought in the pandemic, if we're not playing shows, I couldn't see doing it as a physical release. We may still put it out physically, but I was also at a point where we've been sitting on it for like a year. Been sitting on it for like a year because of the pandemic. I was like, I can't, especially if Trump, doesn't get reelected. I just, this is like my angry, of the moment of this year. It's very much reflective of what was going on in the broader culture. I think a lot of artists sort of couldn't help but do that. And I just wanted it out into the world and out of my system, so I didn't have to be thinking about it anymore, in a sense.
Someone, Laura Levine says, "Hi, Glenn, psyched to watch and listen."
Ah, great.
So, I'm sorry.
Laura Levine is a photographer who took a lot of amazing, was the New York Rocker photo editor, and also a photographer herself who's, you've probably seen some of her images, even if you don't know you've seen her images, because they've been all over the place. And
I think later on we're going to look at a photo in the New York Rocker offices. Is that right?
Well, that might be a Laura Levine photo.
We'll see. We'll get
Laura, if I didn't use the watermarked version, I apologize. I think I was gonna. I'm glad you're tuned in.
So your first Cry for Glenn Morrow, I always call it Cry for Help, but Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help album was simply called Cry for Help. Is that
yes?
Right?
Eponymously titled. Eponymiously.
Yes. I can't say that word either. Eponymously, something like that. How are the two, you sort of hinted at it. How are the two albums different? I mean, besides they're different albums, is it like the tone, the anger, like?
Yeah, the first album was just sort of getting back in touch with songwriting, having, I'd always sort of kept, I've never stopped writing, but after Maxwell's closed and I got to play a bunch of shows there, as you said, at the final shows, I still had all this, suddenly I had all this, sort of pent up enthusiasm or something, I don't know. And I just started writing songs furiously, and they just started coming out really quickly, and it was exciting. So that was sort of the first record. Also, I was kind of listening to a lot of blues music and trying to get a real understanding of everything from acoustic blues all the way up through Chicago electric blues.
Okay.
And how all that stuff played out. So there's it's pretty subtle blues influence in that first record.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second record, I think, is just a little punkier and angrier. I sort of described the band as a classic rock band walks into CBGB's, and that's sort of about right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the first one, the songs are from like 2016, 17. Like
it's all a blur.
Okay.
Things that are happening now are just so blurry because of the pandemic. It's just
everyone lost a year and a half of their lives. Yeah,
3 years ago, something like that. The first album, and then we put out the last album, and we're writing. We're busy writing another record.
Great.
In fact, I'm going to play a new song, Danny. That thanks to you encouraging me to
really
finish something, I'm going to play something tonight. That's like hot off the press.
Actually, since you brought it up, you want to do it now?
Should I do it? I can do it now.
Yeah. So this is a brand new song.
Yeah, we've been practicing it. I can't do the gorgeous 3-part harmony that Glenn Morrow's "Cry for Help."
Well, I'll sing along with you.
Okay, yeah, you guys, if you guys want, I'll tell you, this is like the catchiest chorus. This is like a stupidly catchy chorus. So feel free. I have, and you folks at home. I don't know where to look exactly for.
Right.
And you folks at home, there you go. Yeah, just look at that thing. I can't look at myself and look at you at the same time. All right, let's see here. This is called, I can't tell if the world's ready for this yet or not, but I wrote it with, it's called The Grand Reopening. Promised you a month of Sundays, but then Monday rolled around. I swear that one day I'm gonna make it to your town. You did the heavy lifting, sifting the sands of time. Well, I did the regifting. What was yours is never mine. Take it high, take it low, but take it where you wanna, but take it where you wanna go. And if you ask, you can surely find a mask that's scattered all on the ground. Ring-a-ding-ding, it's the grand reopening. Everybody's leaving town. The mountain folk drink cider by the sea. They're wearing their dressing gowns. The people in the valley are headed for the hills. Their worries are turning upside down. Take it high, everybody. Take it low, but take it where you wanna, but take it where you wanna go. And me, I'm just happy to feel free, though mostly I stay at home, waiting for the grand reopening, where bargains will be found. And until then, I'm giving them the slip. I'm busting out and I'll split the lower lip. Yeah, come on now, it's time to flip that script. Everybody get on down. Take it high, take it low. Take it where you wanna, take it where you wanna go. We'll do it one more time. Take it high, take it low. Take it where you wanna, take it where you wanna go.
Bravo! That was beautiful. You just wrote that, like.
Yeah, literally. Well, yeah, kind of. Some of this was written today, and
I see.
It's been floating around in my head a bit.
Oh, that's terrific. I was ready to pull the
I know,
lyrics
you're
to the
afraid.
side because I remember the time you were doing a thing we were doing at 100,000 Poets for Change at Buey, and you forgot the lyrics.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
I still have a photo of that. So that's a terrific song. Hopefully that'll be on your.
I'll tell you, it sounds
next
pretty good
song.
with the 3-part harmony. We just sat around singing that chorus for like 45 minutes the other day.
Yeah, I wasn't
And it
going
was
to touch that.
That would be Rick Sherman on guitar and Mike Rosenberg on drums and Ron Metz. Ron Metz on drums and Mike Rosenberg on bass and vocals.
I was just going to ask you about the band. How often do you guys get together to rehearse, practice?
Well, we haven't really gotten together that much in the pandemic. We're just starting to get it back together, and there have been a couple health issues with various members to be named later, and but we're supposed to be playing, I think, October 23rd at Berlin in the East Village, not Berlin in Europe. Jerry Fallow got very excited when I said we were playing Berlin.
Oh, yeah. So, okay, we've covered, we've talked about the future. We sort of are in the present as much as we can be with a brand new song. So let's go back. Let's go all the way back to 2013, the closing of Maxwell's. I think in those last days you played with 2 different bands. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. The band that sort of came together and was the first band to play Maxwell's was A, and that band we played a lot in Dover, New Jersey at the place, and we got played on a bill once with Richard Hell and the Voidoids were the headliners. We were in the middle, and the opening band was the Misfits.
Wow.
Which is kind of wild.
Jersey guys.
I have some photos of that somewhere, and they had like their single Bullet with about JFK, and they had them lying around on the tables, and it was like a single, and it literally had a bullet hole like with blood around it.
Oh my God.
It was very dramatic. And anyway, I digress. But then Richard Barone, Rob Norris, and Frank Giannini. I went
basically the bongos.
Basically the bongos. They became the bongos, kind of gently, shifted me aside, and eventually James Mastro became a 4th member. James Mastro of the Guitar Bar, but also probably the hardest working musician in Hoboken, between producing lots of acts and playing with Ian Hunter and sometimes with Patti Smith and just all kinds of people. Mm-hmm. And a bar none recording artist with the Health and Happiness Show. And
then after A, there was the Individuals.
Right. So then I put a band together with which the original drummer. Actually, we originally met Richard Barone through an ad. The guys in A, and he was living with the Laughing Dogs, who were a band on the CBGB's live album And I think they had a record on Epic, but they had like a studio and a loft in Brooklyn. And I think Miriam Lina and Billy Miller might have lived upstairs from the A-Bones and the Zantes. And
So Richard's not a Jersey guy? Originally?
No, he came from Florida, and somehow I don't know how he ended up. Oh, yeah, that's right. He the Laughing Dogs were the Monkees backup band, and Richard saw them in Florida.
Wait, what do you mean they were the Monkees backup band?
They I think it was like Mickey Dolenz and one other monkey maybe.
Oh, you mean it literally?
They were literally his backup band, and Richard went to one of the shows and then somehow hitched a ride to New York. But at any rate, he left. It's a little blurry, but at some point, another guy named that had a record, Emerson Bimby, was roommates with John Klett. And John Klett was the original drummer of the Individuals. He lived above Maxwell's for a long time. He's sort of a renowned engineer. He fixes, he goes, I don't know if he still does this, but he used to, you'd be in a recording studio and suddenly John Klett would appear. And he was like the guy that tweaked all the machines, to make sure the 24 track tape machines were running properly. And he also had a band. He was one of the first bands to actually get signed by a major label. They were the Hawaiian Pups that had an EP on Epic.
Wow.
At any rate, the Individuals lineup solidified with Janet Weigel, Doug Weigel, and John Klages, all interesting people. Janet and Doug were brother and sister. Their father had played with Louis Prima.
Wow.
And we once actually played the Meadowlands in Cedar Grove, and their father had played there back in the swing era. So that was kind of cool.
Did they live in Hoboken?
Janet lived in Hoboken for quite a while, although they are both upstate New York now, and Doug runs Rocket Number 9 Records, which is a record store in Kingston. He's kind of like the mayor of Kingston, the rock and roll mayor of Kingston.
Which you would be if you still lived in Hoboken. You'd be the rock and roll mayor.
I think that's Lou Carbone, but
well, he's just the mayor. Yes. But you moved out of Hoboken how long ago?
It's been about 3.5 years, maybe.
Right, but
yeah, we had.
You still have your business in Hoboken.
Yes, I still. Bar None Records is in Hoboken in the Newman Leather Building, and so I'm sort of back and forth. I actually live up in Harlem now, and it's been fun. Sort of getting I literally lived in the same apartment for over 32 years or something. Even more, 35. And
it was a beautiful.
It was a really great apartment, but I was treated fairly by the developers that finally came for us, and it's now luxury condos, and it definitely needed to be overhauled. I think the windows were 40 years old, and
I think our windows are 100 years old. I don't know. Is that the only place you lived in?
No, I lived on 224 Jefferson. I lived at a building that Frank Sinatra lived in at one point on 7th and Park.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of blanking on the address now. I lived, I think, on 6th. Yeah, at least 4 places. I crashed above in Steve Fallon's apartment a few times, above Maxwell's when I was homeless.
So in all those years, obviously, we don't want to beat this to death. Hoboken has changed, to the point where not that many people we knew who lived here. What? Yeah. Other?
There's really there's literally, I think you could probably count them on one hand, and I won't cite them all, but it's a very small group of people that were here in the, the early 80s. But you think about all the bands that were here at one point, from the Bongos, the Cucumbers, a lot of the DBs, I think some Ray Beats, some Sonic Youth, some the Silos. Did I say cucumbers already?
Yes, you did.
Yola Tango, of course. Oddly, I don't know if any of the Feelies actually ever lived in Hoboken, but Maxwell's was certainly their clubhouse.
Well, Gene the plumber is still here.
Gene Toronis, who predated the whole
everything, yeah. Yes.
He's been here since the days of the Insect Trust. And you know what? Jerry Fallow said this to me, and I don't know if it's true. And Gene has never said this to me, but I'm going to go public with this, and he'll have to deny it. Jerry Fallow swears he was Phil Oakes's roommate.
Really?
Yeah, I got to call him up and find out. Oh, Rob Grenoble from Cries had Water Music, which was, a really high quality recording studio. It's across the street. It's now closed. It's going to be turned into some new building, like a condos or whatever.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But
that's everything.
He built a place that people could really afford to go to. And, like bands like the Allman Brothers would do records there, he had a bunch of Tripping Daisy, I think had a chart record out of there. And then, bands that he developed Sweet Lizard Tet out of there.
I thought you developed.
I managed them, but he was like the producer of the project and kind of nurtured them right from the time they were teenagers, I think. Mm-hmm. And they've gone on to Zeph. Who's he play with? He plays with some really big name people. What's the name of the guy that was in can't remember. It was like British bands that were like really well known.
As you're thinking of it, I see a question up
there.
Yeah. Chris Palmieri asks, which Hoboken bands sold the most records, and is that still the case in streaming?
Someone said Kanye West lived here for a little while in the
Lipton
Tea building. I swear to God. Yeah.
I don't know. I
swear to God. And that band Thursday came in later. They were like a emo band that I think sold over, 100,000
really
records. I don't have the Feely sales numbers at hand, and like I said, they didn't live in Hoboken, but they were based out of the Maxwells. Yola Tango probably would be the best seller, then the Feelies, and after that, it's sort of a grab bag probably of. And Freddie Johnston, who was on Bar None initially, he had a major label record that did pretty well.
So all this is bringing us into my next question. Anyway, at a certain point, you got involved with a record label, Bar None.
Right.
How'd you come up with the name Bar None?
Actually, that Tom Prendergast, who was a Irishman who worked in pirate radio and was also a bartender at Maxwell's, became friends with me, sort of wandered into the back room one day when we were rehearsing and liked the individuals. And we just sort of hit it off, and we both lived at 224 Jefferson. I lived there with John Clagis, and Peter Holzapfel lived there for a while. Trying to remember who else. But he started the label, and he was like, Glenn, we're going to have the best bands bar none. And
oh, really? Just that statement? You guys were like, yeah.
And I was like, okay, bar none, yeah.
That's great. When I first met you, Bar None was like a new endeavor.
In 1986.
Okay, so it was fairly new, a few years old. What prompted you to want to have your own record label?
Well, like I say, it was Tom's label, and he actually started it. He was running Pure Platters with Bill Ryan and Steve Fallon for a little while. Pure Platters, which is now what is that cookie place called that's on Newark? Insomnia Cookies.
I was say stoner cookies.
That was pure. And actually, I went in, and then around the corner they had there's like a coffee place, and I went in there. Actually, I really needed. I was up early. I needed a cup of coffee, and I went in there. I thought, I bet they have a pretty good cup of coffee. And the guys in there, I got my cup of coffee, and I was like, "Did you know this was a record store once?" And they're like, "Well, we really still like music here." And I'm like, "Yeah." And the hairdresser next door was Bread and Butters, and I was like the old codger. Like,
well, it's funny because one of the few bars I'm still comfortable at in Hoboken is Wilton House, which is there. I feel right at home.
That like may be the last true. I don't want to use the D word, but that's actually the bar for path workers, pretty much. They come in there, like, guys that work the night shift. They start drinking in the day because they've been working all night and they want to relax at 9 a.m. or whatever whenever it is they open. But
I still delight in $3 pints.
Yeah, they got a new big sign out front about their special pricing right now.
Yes, yeah, you get it in a solo cup. Yeah, that's pretty good. So you have this record.
Yeah. So anyway, Tom started the label and to put out a record that I had made after the Individuals broke up. I started Rage to Live, and he wanted. That's what he wanted to start the label with, that record.
So the first
Rage,
release
was Rage to Live. Yeah, and I think we found a test pressing recently that said it was April of 1986 on the test pressing. So that's more or less when the label started. And we just kind of, we didn't really. I'd had a little bit of experience working with the record people that put out the individual stuff, who were a record exporter, and they started a label, and so I kind of learned the ropes and from kind of working the record through them, Plexus in the city, and at any rate, Tom put out the first record, and then I was kind of like, you know what? I've been on the road already, and I just got married, and I don't know if I can really, the guys I really like, they're all like expensive musicians now that from the band, or at least 2 out of the 3. And, it just seemed, I said, how about you make me your partner? Sorry you spent money on that video. And, but I found this band that we should work with, and that was They Might Be Giants. And that was our second release. And we sold about 10,000. Oh, yeah, I guess you could they weren't really a Hoboken band, but we sold 10,000 of that in the first year. And then we got them on MTV, and, it's incredible.
Okay. I see another question.
What they've become to.
I'm sorry. I see another question up there. Did Glenn write a song about Maxwell's? I guess the answer is yes, because the chorus was.
I think that's a false.
Very best.
I think that's a false memory. I did write a song, Hoboken Party, that went ho 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 Hoboken. You don't need no subway token to get to Hoboken.
Deep.
It's a home of Jackson Pollock, the world's largest neon sign. Buckminster Fuller, and then it turned out Jackson Pollock, the museum said he never lived here.
That's the first I'm ever hearing.
I swear, someone told me that.
Yeah, Kanye West and Jackson
Neil
Pollock.
Cassidy got arrested by the police in Hoboken.
Well, On the Road starts in Hoboken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to find his mugshot. That would be cool.
Look at that. Don't forget Luca Bloom.
We managed Luca Bloom at one point, and that makes me think of Michael Hill, who lived in Hoboken, still lives in Hoboken, but was an A&R guy at Warner Brothers and championed Luca Bloom, signed him. Tom and I managed him, and then also signed Sweet Lizard Old Tet and worked with the Replacements, and then Gracepool, which is actually members of Rage to Live, were in Gracepool. So he was a big supporter of, a good guy to have in town.
Mm-hmm. So there's plenty of highs, successes that you have had as a record label, have there ever been points where you said, I can't do this anymore?
Yes, yes.
This isn't viable.
Yes.
How have you survived in an industry? I saw some interview with you somewhere where you said the record industry has collapsed. How have you survived? Has there been any like metaphorical lifelines that have been thrown? Like how are you still doing it?
There've been, I would say, for a lot of Bar None's existence, it literally was month to month. Like you'd wait to see what the distributor check was going to be, and if it was going to cover everything, and you kind of figured out what your nut was for the month, and it was literally month to month. Like we never knew if we were going to make it another month, and that was stressful.
Yeah.
And then not only were you just kind of paying the bills, but you were kind of maybe accumulating debt, and there was like this ball of debt that was kind of growing that you're just kind of not looking at. And then every once in a while it would rear up at you, and you would have to deal with it. And fortunately, I think I was always very honest with people, and when I owed money, I was like, look, we got nothing, and it's not like I'm enriching myself. I've heard of record labels where it's like, I can't pay you because I have to pay my mortgage and I have to, and it's like, wait a minute, you can't rip off the artist on the label and like keep your fancy house. And,
Right.
I mean, I would go without paychecks. There was one point I was just ready to start driving a cab. Fortunately, my wife was always employed, and while there were a few times I think she was at about had it with me in Bar None, she stayed the course, and it's in the end now, we're doing better than we've ever done, and
That's amazing.
it's kind
That's great. Well, remember in those years in the 80s and 90s, I was doing Long Shot,
Right.
magazine at the same time,
Right.
fancy myself like an artsy businessman or something. And yeah, we just
You kept that going a long time.
Yeah, till I couldn't anymore.
Yeah.
But you've been going 35 years now, I think.
Yeah, it's I'm still stunned, and yeah, there were times when money would come in and you'd just be, okay, it's time to pay the piper and pay the people that were patient with you and the ones that weren't as patient. Yep. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I got to do this whole time. It's been a wonderful way to spend one's life. I mean, you're in bands when you're young. And being in a band, I was thinking about this today, just, it doesn't really matter, like if you release one split 7-inch single or, you get to tour the world. It's all sort of part of the same process. And even if you get to tour the world, you probably only have like 2 or 3 albums that people care about,
Right.
Like if you're Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, I mean, people like the first 2 albums and maybe the live album, but does anyone really care about the one with the hot dogs on the cover?
No.
So in a way, you can have an experience as an artist,
right,
or as a musician in a band, and it's all just it's having that experience. Maybe you can make a lot of money and have a nice lifestyle, but really, anybody can have that kind of great experience in a band, but it's not generally not sustainable over the long term. And I'm just really grateful I was able to then, pivot, as they say, into running the label and experience, generations and generations of younger musicians, and still be sort of caught up in that process and.
Yeah, that's
excited by new ideas and new marketing things.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you, because you've often talk about your musical influences. I come to mind, I'd say Velvet Underground, Jonathan Richman, Patti Smith, television. But are you aware at all of how many people, and this is, I guess, a rhetorical question almost, how many people you have influenced? Because it's a lot. Like, there's like a whole sound that you've influenced.
It's weird, it's funny. I mean, I don't know about me personally, there are people that enjoyed the individuals and whatnot, but in terms of Bar None, it's weird. Like, you put on Spotify, like I was something, it was like a Bar None playlist, and it turned into like Bar None Radio. Mm-hmm. And then you're listening to Bar None Radio, and it's all these artists. I'm like, I'd sign that. That's fantastic. Well, who are these bands? There are so many bands out there. I heard so many bands that I never heard of. That sounded like
they chose for the Bar None.
Yeah, but it's just some algorithm, and it's like,
there you
I'm
go.
like, this all sounds really good to me. I give up. I do think though that Bar None, if it's done anything, it's sort of this like quiet thread, I guess I'd like to call it, that, it's not there like in your face like a Madonna record or a Beyonce or Van Halen, or not something that just permeates the whole culture. But it's quietly seeping into things like Esquivel songs and movies, or
yeah, I think you're underselling it. It's there. It's part of, at least,
yeah. I mean, I will say this, people always are like, hey, I think you would like my band. I've loved your label, and we've been around. So, someone will be like, oh, I love Preeti Johnson. I love the Feelies, Alex Chilton. There's so many different things, artists that we've worked with that have touched people at different points.
Well, you've provided this soundtrack for a big chunk of my life, and I don't think I'm alone in that.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that.
Let's get to some pictures, some images, okay?
Well, we should just talk about this image.
Okay.
Just
behind us.
This is actually my Instagram handle. And my Instagram is like a camera too. And you can see, I'm going to probably post some more sort of stuff about, I've been digging through the archives, so it's probably time to go back a little bit and post some stuff. I have a really good picture up there right now of Jared Nickerson, who is in the Human Switchboard, Jared Michael Nickerson, as he likes to be referred to, and coming out of the post office with a mask, with this amazing beard that he's grown and this purple mask and these great sunglasses. He looks just amazing. Anyway, you can see that I like a camera too. But I took this picture. This is actually, lean over a little, Danny. This way, yeah. That's actually an aerial view of a traffic cone, a filthy one, filthy. And then they were doing something with the manhole cover where they created this kind of circle of fire around it. But used to have this cone that had an A on it, and it's kind of, we were like kind of in that kind of new wave, maybe Kraftwerk. I think Kraftwerk had an album cover that had I guess they're called pylons, right?
That's what I call them.
And Rob Norris swears that there was some kind of poster for our band, or either that or the Bongos had a poster that they used a pylon on. And that pylon got their name from that poster. They had it on their refrigerator. But when we did the reunion, I got kind of obsessed with orange cones, and they were everywhere. And I was taking pictures of orange cones, and that really got me back into photography. I was like a journalist for my hometown newspaper when I was a teenager, and did some photography in college, and then kind of got beat down by a couple teachers, and seemed like, then I was around people like Laura Levine, like really good photographers, and I just kind of let it go. But I've really gotten into, the phone camera thing. Anyway.
So wait, before we get to this pictures, let me tell you one thing. I was after Glenn for like 2 months. Send me the images, send me the images, send me the images. And Glenn would say I was a pain in the ass, asking him for it. And then he was going through all sorts of existential things. Which pictures? In the end, he sent me like 30 or 35. So the 12 or 13 that you're going to see are ones I basically chose, not necessarily what Glenn would have chose, but I don't know that Glenn would have chose. So let's get to the pictures.
Yeah. That was actually my high school yearbook page. That was actually my desk. I was into Todd Rundgren in high school, and probably my haircut was, I didn't have the multicolored hair.
That is Todd Rundgren. And I see in that you're athlete of the week for cross country. You know, I was a cross country runner too. Actually, Dumont had a really good team, and I'm going to brag for a minute. I am in the Dumont Sports Hall of Fame.
Watch out.
Not because I was a good runner. Out of like 25, I was probably 23rd best. But they put our whole team, because we were the state champs in 1971 or 72. So they put our whole team in the Hall of Fame.
Did you run at Garrett Mountain?
All the time. And we ran at
that was Portland a terrifying course, wasn't
it?
it?
Oh my God.
Oh
my God.
Like how many people? It'd be like 500 people lined up, and then they all had to like squeeze into this tiny little place in the wood that would go into the woods with like rocks and stuff all around.
I never finished at Garrett Mountain because I was like the rabbit of our team. I was supposed to run the first
to wear
mile.
Out the
I was supposed to run the first mile and a half as fast as I could.
Wow, we weren't that sophisticated.
And then whatever happened after, if I walked home, that was fine.
Oh, that's funny.
Let's go to the next.
That is from left to right, Rob Norris, Richard Barone, Frank Giannini in the front, and me over there. And I think that was taken with Rob Norris's camera on a tripod.
Okay. Whenever you want to move on to the next, you tell
us.
And
that was from the apartment that we had on 1118 Hudson Street that we all lived in briefly.
What was the rent when you lived there?
When I initially moved there, it was like 6 rooms for $60 for the whole place.
Oh my God!
Not my split. It was $60.
And how many of you lived there?
Thank you. What's her name? Maureen Singleton. The Singletons, yeah, the Singleton family, which is still active in town in real estate. I lived there before them. Then Richard became my roommate. Then they all moved in. Next thing I know, I was moving out.
out of the apartment, out of the band.
Yeah.
Oh. Ready for the next one?
Oh, and then so when we did the reunion, my son Jackson actually painted spray painted an A on a cone, and we carried it out before we played. And I had it at my office for a while, and then one day I thought, you know what? I don't need to hold on to this. Like, that cone should be allowed to be free and go play with the other cones.
So
there's a lot of cones out there.
That's where it's free?
That's where I left it, yeah.
And where is that?
That was outside the old Bar 9 office in Weehawken.
Oh, okay.
It may still be there for all I know.
Mm-hmm.
Where do those cones go? They get moved around.
They go to cone heaven.
I still look at cones a lot. I look at cones from both sides now. They get bent in weird ways, and there's just so many amazing things that are done with traffic cones. Are you looking at me very suspiciously? I care about them a little too much. I agree.
It's okay.
I once did a whole photo study on the weeds of Hoboken, so there you go. That's the New York Rocker office. That's a photo by Laura Levine, and as I say, I apologize, it doesn't have the watermark on it. There's a watermarked version too, but that's Andy Schwartz. This was like at like midnight or something when we were trying to get the paper finished, and everyone was getting a little giddy. Andy normally didn't wear sunglasses like that, but he was probably playing DJ there. I can see the Dills single up there, and an NRBQ bumper sticker, and there's a Killing Joke sticker. And
who's the other guy in the photo?
That's Ira Kaplan.
And he worked with
who
you?
Was also was a kind of a journalist. In fact, I think he used to be annoyed because they would always say, I think Rolling Stone would always say, former music critic Ira Kaplan.
Oh, that would annoy them.
Wouldn't that annoy you?
Rock star.
Yeah. And right above his head,
that's Ira Kaplan from Yo La Tengo.
Right above his hair is a picture of, I think that's either Genya Ravan or Helen Wheels. It looks like it's an Art Crumb cartoon.
Oh, wow.
And above that is the Neon Boys single, which was television before they were television. And to the left of that is a Flying Lizard who had that song Money. So that gives you an idea of, and then, you know, just to mix it up, there's what was Crazy? Who sang Crazy? Patsy Cline.
Wow.
I think that's Patsy Cline next to the Resist.
So what year would you say this is?
This is probably
78?
Yeah, 79 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
79, 80. Well, if Laura Levine took the picture, she came a little bit later. And Laura, if you're still there, you want to post something, what year it was.
And so this is New
Check
York.
her out on Instagram too. I think she's got 2 different Instagrams up there. One, but just lots of just incredible vintage from this era. The whole, she shot all through the 80s and into the 90s. A lot of the early hip hop acts and a lot of REM. I think she made an REM movie, early REM movie. Great stuff.
So where is this?
That's the New York Rocker office.
Where's that?
It was across the street from the Flatiron Building, like 21st Street in Manhattan, between 20th and 21st on Fifth Avenue.
Okay. Next.
That's the Individuals hanging out in the front room of Maxwell's, but I think right by the doors leading to the back room. And that was sort of us when, you know, we were kind of like,
Cute.
we were kind of confident at that point that we were, you know, we knew what we liked. And I guess I liked cigarettes at the time. Looks like I got a pack of cigarettes in my pocket.
Yeah.
I think that's Doug in his Findlay, Ohio varsity jacket.
Cool.
So it's Janet Weigel, Doug Weigel, myself, and John Clagis. And I started to talk about them before. Janet went on to have the band, the Weigels, and then had a record out on Rough Trade. And then she had Splendora, who wrote the song for, was it Clarissa? It was an MTV show. What was that? The name of it?
Clarissa Explains It.
Yeah. What was it called?
Clarissa Explains It All.
Clarissa Explains It All. I'm not sure that's totally right, but that's the best we can come up with. That's 3 of us. She wrote the theme song for that, and when we did our reunion show, we learned that and played it. It was like a song from the 90s.
Cool.
And then John Clagis just put out an album with Pete Thomas on drums from the Attractions, and John and Doug both, after the Individuals went and played, toured Europe with in Richard Lloyd's band, and then John went out west and just recently made an album, like I say, with Pete Thomas, and it's kind of on some level it's a tribute to his grandfather, who was Enoch Light.
I heard of that.
Yeah.
Because when you got the records, and there was the Enoch Light Orchestra all the time.
Enoch Light and the Light Brigade. And he was a musician who was smart enough to, he cranked out a lot of records that kind of like Esquivel, in the sense they were records to make your stereo sound really good when everyone was getting hi-fi stereo systems in the early 60s. And he would do like big band greatest hits and kind of make them super modern for the time. And then he ultimately signed the Free Design, who became this kind of cult band years later that were kind of, sunshine pop, like the Association or something like that. And John's record has a cover that's reminiscent of the Enoch Light. I think that was Command, I think was the name of the label.
Okay.
So yeah,
let's move along because we got like 5 minutes. Oh,
that was our old the apartment that I lived in Hoboken for 35 years. And
So what are we
my
looking
wife
at?
Elizabeth isn't real fond of being photographed, but I thought I could get away with putting this in there. And that's actually some of the glass that was in the sliding doors between a couple of rooms. It was like a railroad with an outer hall on it. And yeah, that was sort of just before we left. I think the sun was coming in, and I don't know, somehow
It's beautiful.
came together.
Beautiful. Next.
That's Tom Prendergast, who started Bar None Records, now lives in Ireland. He came and visited me, and we walked from where I live now in Harlem up the Hudson River, and that's him standing under the
Washington Bridge.
the George Washington Bridge, looking a little, I think, like Julie Andrews, and the you know, like
The hills are alive.
although he always you know, his role model was Fred Astaire, and he really did sort of look like Fred Astaire.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the walks we do all the time from the Fort Lee side. We park the car and walk under to.
Yep,
like
I've done that
there.
many times.
Yes. Awesome. Next.
I didn't take this photo, but that's Kate Jacobs playing at one of the Hoboken waterfront festivals back when it was, I think, on Pier A, or
Pier
maybe
A.
when it was that sort of busted up
Cement
pier below
block.
Stevens.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. Kate Jacobs was a Bar None recording artist. I think we did at least 3 albums, maybe 4. And she's made a lot of music since, written musicals, incredibly talented, but anyone in Hoboken would know about her because she is the owner of Little City Books and has kept music alive in the modern world by, you know, having various turning that into a performance space at night occasionally.
And her son's a musician also.
Yes.
Elevator pitch.
Who did
Elevator pitch.
Who did some interning at Bar None.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Next.
That's just some Bar None releases that we've had over the years. Yola Tango Fake Book, and the Langley School Music Project that Erwin Chusett brought to us, an Alex Chilton collection I put together of Alex doing jazz standards, actually 2 Alex Chilton records there. Ezra Furman, who people may have heard he's kind of the main musician for the TV show Sex Education that's been on HBO, I think. And actually there's an Stevie Moore record up above the Ezra Furman record, and a Feelies album, and Young Woo, which is actually a Feelies album, but with Dave Weckerman up front as lead singer.
Cool.
And at this point, I would just like to say something about Dave Schramm, because I've been thinking about him. We put out a Dave Schramm record about a year ago, but he's really the secret weapon of a lot of Hoboken music. If you think of a lot of the great records from Fake Book, Freddie Johnston's Can You Fly, but also This Perfect World. Dave played on those records on the Chris Stamey It's All Right album. There's a record coming out that most people have never heard by Myra Holder that Chris Stamey just remastered, and it sounds fantastic, and Dave's the main guitar player on that. And it's just like incredible. It's kind of a breakup record, and it just
awesome.
It'll rip your heart out. And it was like on Coyote, and just got kind of she was a really talented just great singer. Such a good record. It was really nice to hear it again after all these years.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm sorry.
Oh,
John,
Daria.
Yeah.
Clarissa. We were mixing up with that was the one about the teenage witch, or she went on to become the teenage witch.
Let's
Daria.
Let's scroll on.
Daria explains it all. Right now?
Dave, let's go, because we got
it's just called
we
Daria.
got 2 minutes left.
Rage to Live with a price tag from Tunes in Hoboken. That's actually from a painting of that Duncan Hanna did of Dylan Thomas that I saw at a show. Duncan Duncan, just really interesting painter, does these kind of I guess you'd call them realistic paintings. Like when a lot of people were doing other things, he kind of stuck to his guns and did this kind of nostalgic, kind of for like a time in the, I don't know, in the 40s through the 60s, kind of romantic.
So he let you use his painting?
Yeah.
Amazing.
We became friendly. And Duncan Hanna, he wrote he kept diaries all through the 70s, and they're amazing. Like
my friend Rob Press has told me to read that.
Oh, it's so good. It's called 20th Century Boy, and it kind of goes from like 1968, and he's in Minneapolis, and then goes over to England and sees like Roxy Music and stuff like that. But then he gets completely caught up in the whole New York thing. He was a painter, so he knew Warhol, and he brought the Talking Heads to meet Warhol, and he's just right there in the mix all the time. He was always in the room for all kinds of interesting stuff in the art and music world.
It's amazing. Let's scroll on.
James Mastro, I already discussed him. I should have saved it for this. All your guitar needs at the Guitar Bar.
That's right.
Amazing space, and an amazing guy.
Yeah, we talked about him a lot. Let's scroll on.
That is Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help. Ron Metz, Mike Rosenberg, myself, and Rick Sherman.
Great photo. Where was that taken?
Really great. Mark Jaworski, great photographer that we met through the Front Bottoms, took that. And that's at the Newman Leather Building, kind of in this inner...
Such a great background for so many photos.
Yeah.
Any photographer just loves that building.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Next.
That's Emmy Black, who put out who worked at Bar None Records and discovered the Front Bottoms, who was sort of their A&R person, and went on to work at start her own label, Rhyme and Reason. We still share an office. And I love this picture because she's really multitasking with her phone, her coffee, and her cigarette, and her headphones.
Yeah.
And she's definitely helped keep me inspired over the years. Her enthusiasm, not only she's enthusiastic about the whole history of Bar None, and she can talk to you about like the time signature in the DB's what's the song, It'll Come to Me. It's in some weird time signature. So yeah, that song. And now I'm forgetting the song.
It's okay. I chose Emmy, because I put these pictures in order of the many he sent. I chose Emmy for near the end because we start with your career, and now we've gotten to here, working at Bar None, working alongside Emmy, if you will. Wonderful person.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next. Now, this is something I chose and that Glenn didn't. And if we just look at it for a minute, there's no need to really comment on it. Who made this, by the way?
The artist's name is down there. It was sort of put together by Rhyme and Reason and this woman Zane over there, and
it's basically quite incomplete, and it is incomplete. Family Tree of the Hoboken Sound in celebration of the release of Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help. And I'm not going to explain everything to you, but you could see all the tendrils coming and going, and then we have Maxwell's.
I think that was originally inspired, I don't remember who did it, but New York Rocker, there were a lot of people in bands at New York Rocker, and then a lot of people that worked with other people, and then people that were in relationships with other people, and it all got very tangled, and there were all these crisscrossing lines, and this just sticks to the music.
Right, but that's what I was talking about before when I talked about the influence of Glenn Morrow on others. You just can see it there. You can just see it. Well, let's go on. I think we're just about done now with Glenn Morrow. And so I think there were a few more slides.
I like the way that looks like the water is.
Yeah. So on Hoboken Talks, coming soon, I believe next week, I'm not sure, we're going to have Jack Silbert talking with Karen Listener. And after that, we again have Jack Silbert talking with Jenny Pooh. It'll be really good. Jack Silbert's an amazing conversationalist, and he'll keep you engaged the whole time. This program, in part, is in memory of Donald Shackett. Also, the New Jersey Historical Commission is a sponsor of this show, and Applied Development Company. Hoboken Talks. And there's one more event. Going on right now, the exhibit is The Avenue, A History of Washington Street. And that's what's all through the museum. And you should definitely check it out. The Avenue, obviously, Washington Street is the heart of Hoboken. And there's so much memorabilia of our main street. You got to check it out. Also, coming soon, I think, is it Sunday?
Yeah.
Sunday opening, Cavemen Built My Skateboard. Director and photographer Joan Michelle is getting put up now. I was just looking at some of the photos on the floor. It's pretty exciting. And coming soon, actually next Sunday, September 26th at 4 p.m., Street Corner Talking. And it's poets. Actually, we got Buttered Roll, Cindy Dawson, Roxanne Hoffman, Joe Lewis, Nancy Bevilacqua, and me, Danny Schott. The idea of Street Corner Talking, calling it that, came from Joel Lewis. He said it's the name of, I forget, some band. Damn, I'm sorry, I forgot, but it sounded really good. And so each of us will have a poem or two that is Hoboken based. And it's well worth checking out. I think, weather permitting, we're going to do it out in the courtyard. It's also, like this show, going to be, it's actually, unlike this show, it's going to be live and in person, but we'll also be streaming it on YouTube and Facebook. So that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in